What if you're chasing the wrong kind of rich? Today on Insibook, we're unpacking Sahil Bloom's 5 types of wealth, because money is only 1/5 of the story. In the next few minutes, we'll audit your whole portfolio of life: money, time, health, relationships, and knowledge skills. You'll get a quick self-score, a simple way to rebalance, where to add, what to trim, and tiny habits to compound each bucket. Earn and invest smarter, win back hours, protect your body, deepen your circle, and level up your skills so opportunities chase you. If you've ever felt busy but broke, or rich but empty, do not skip. By the end, you'll have a one-page plan to build all 5 kinds of wealth, so your life grows in every direction, not just your bank account. Ready to get truly rich? Let's begin. You start by fixing the scoreboard. For years, the numbers felt simple: income, net worth, titles, square footage, follower counts. Win on those, the story goes, and life will feel rich. But the more those numbers climb, the more a strange fatigue creeps in. The vague sense that the ladder is leaning against the wrong wall. The scoreboard is broken, so you build a new one that measures what actually makes a life feel abundant, resilient, and joyful. You decide that wealth is plural, not singular, and that 5 forms of it, time, social, mental, physical, and financial, make up a portfolio you will manage across the long arc of a life. Once the scoreboard changes, your actions change with it. Right scoreboard, right actions. The first account to open is time wealth, because everything else is purchased with it. Time is both a currency and a canvas. You spend it to acquire skills, love, trust, money, and health. You paint your days with it and hang those days in the gallery of memory. On the old scoreboard, time was something you sacrificed on the altar of growth and reclaimed someday. On the new one, time is the asset you guard most fiercely. You begin by making it visible. Instead of counting years in abstract, you count the concrete experiences remaining with the people you love and the pursuits that matter: dinners with your parents, summer trips before children leave home, unbroken weekend mornings you can still spend learning something new. Finite numbers have a way of sobering the mind. You replace the vague hope of work-life balance with a design. Intentional seasons for sprints and Sabbaths, rules that keep your calendar from being colonized by other people's priorities, a bias for saying yes to what compounds in meaning and no to what merely fills. Time wealth is not retirement deferred to the end. It is autonomy spread throughout the journey, measured by the degree to which your days reflect your values rather than your inbox. Social wealth follows, not as networking theater, but as the quiet architecture of a life. It is the quality and depth of the people who populate your days: family you can count on, friends who know your unvarnished story, colleagues you'd go to battle with, mentors who see further and pull you forward, apprentices who carry your lessons into futures you'll never see. Transactions are cheap, relationships are expensive and priceless in the same breath. You invest by being dependable over long spans, by giving without immediate expectation, by building reputational equity you can't fake. You design rituals that multiply trust: shared meals without phones, recurring check-ins, annual trips that anchor friendships. You prune cynically charming ties and nurture quietly generous ones. Over time, social wealth becomes an anti-fragile shield around your life, a safety net when you fall, a flywheel when you push, a mirror when you drift. In crisis, it is the difference between isolation and a room that fills. In harvest seasons, it transforms opportunity into shared celebration instead of lonely victory. Mental wealth is the operating system that runs everything else. It is not a mood you happen to have. It is a stack of habits and narratives you deliberately install. You start by noticing the loops that govern your days: the stories you tell about setbacks, the voice you use with yourself when you miss, the default lens through which you explain other people's behavior. You replace harshness with rigor, high standards held without self-contempt. You create practices that stabilize attention: journaling to process, reading to widen, time in nature to reset, stillness to hear the signal underneath the noise. You seek perspective by zooming out to a 10-year horizon when daily fluctuations would drag you into panic or euphoria. You normalize asking for help from a friend, a coach, a therapist, because the goal is not to prove you can carry every load alone. The goal is to keep the system healthy so you can carry the loads that matter. Mental wealth does not banish difficulty. It teaches you how to metabolize it into learning instead of scarring. Physical wealth is the body's balance sheet, and it compounds or decays just like capital. Sleep is your base rate. Miss enough of it and every other metric lies. Movement is your dividend, regular, varied, and scaled to the season you're in. Food is your fuel, closer to the source, less processed, more deliberate. You treat health like an asset that must be maintained during booms and protected during downturns. You schedule the checkups, do the boring prehab that prevents the exciting rehab, and organize your environment so the easy option is the right option. You don't outsource this one to when things slow down. You build it into the day you actually have, because the day you actually have is the only place you can win this game. Physical wealth doesn't scream its returns, it whispers them in clearer mornings, steadier moods, and a longer runway for the rest of your ambitions. Only after these do you reframe financial wealth, not as the only measure, but as a supporting pillar that makes the others safer and more flexible. Money becomes a tool for buying back time, deepening relationships, protecting mental health, and maintaining the body. Not a trophy for winning status games you don't actually care about. You focus on simple, durable moves rather than dazzling maneuvers. Spend less than you earn with a persistent surplus, increase your earning power by compounding skills, automate savings and investing so behavior beats intention, own broad productive assets for long spans, keep a cash buffer so small storms don't become existential hurricanes. You ignore comparisons because comparison hijacks your scoreboard. You write a brief personal investment policy, what you own and why, when you rebalance, what you simply will not touch, and you follow it through noise. Financial wealth becomes the quiet enabler of the life you mean to live rather than the center of the story. As the 5 accounts fill and drain across seasons, you learn to manage trade-offs like a portfolio manager, not a gambler. Early in a career, you may overweight financial and knowledge-building efforts, but not at the price of zeroing out your body or your closest bonds. During a caregiving chapter or the early years of parenting, you intentionally re-weight toward time and social wealth, resisting the lie that these are detours rather than the main road. In a creative sprint, you temporarily tax physical comfort or discretionary time, but you book an exit and honor it when the sprint ends. You stop expecting simultaneous balance and start practicing sequential balance, the art of focusing on one domain while tending the minimum viable routine in the others so nothing breaks while you build. Language helps. You think in seasons rather than forever, in rebalancing rather than failing, in portfolio health rather than perfection. This portfolio mindset changes how you plan days and decades. You map your week as if it were an investment statement, blocks for deep work that grow financial and mental wealth, workouts that protect physical wealth, meals and calls that deposit into social wealth, deliberate white space that guards time wealth from becoming the scraps left over after your obligations eat. You add small compounding habits to each bucket: a daily walk, a weekly letter to a friend, a no-phone dinner, a 10-minute review of finances that look trivial in isolation and transform the baseline across years. You treat weekends as laboratories for the life you want more of, not recovery rooms for a life that is slowly breaking you. You also change how you evaluate opportunities. Instead of asking only, how much does it pay? You ask, what does it pay into? A new role that doubles income but halves your presence with a dying parent may be a net loss on the real scoreboard. A project that pays modestly but introduces you to people you admire and skills you want to own might be a compounding machine in disguise. A move across the country that gives your kids proximity to cousins and grandparents could be a decade-defining deposit into social wealth. You stop pretending all returns are denominated in dollars, and you begin to value the currencies that don't fit on a spreadsheet but define your memories when the spreadsheets are archived. Because time wealth sits at the top of the stack, you become ruthless about rescuing it from trivialities. You unsubscribe, you automate, you set thresholds for meetings, you practice saying no to opportunities that are good but not aligned, you pursue focus like a craft, because scattered attention is a tax you cannot afford if you want any of the other accounts to grow. You measure days not by how many fires you put out but by whether you invested in the pieces that build the life you've designed. You learn to leave some emails unanswered and some money unearned in order to leave some moments unmissed. On the social side, you treat relationships like gardens, regular tending, seasonal pruning, patient growth. You choose people whose definition of success includes your thriving. You look for those who clap when you win, sit with you when you lose, and tell you the truth when you're drifting. You become that person for others. You build circles that mix ages so wisdom can flow both directions. You give your kids a front row seat to generosity so they grow up believing it's normal. You let friction teach rather than harden, repairing after conflict so the bond comes back stronger than before. Social wealth is not popularity, it is a web of mutual obligations gladly accepted. Mental wealth asks you to examine your scoreboard regularly. Drift returns whenever you stop looking. You run small audits. Is your inner voice a coach or a critic? Are you choosing inputs that nourish or inflame? Have your goals quietly become someone else's? You install guardrails against the distortions that modern life rewards, the performative busyness that flatters the ego while starving the soul, the doom scroll that mistakes information for wisdom, the status chase that burns financial wealth to buy social illusions. You choose boredom on purpose, letting the mind idle so it can notice what matters. You journal not to catalog your life but to design it. Physical wealth remains stubbornly unhackable, which is exactly why it works. You set bedtimes like appointments. You pick movements you can love enough to repeat, a barbell, a bike, a trail, a mat, and you keep them plain. You eat in ways that future you will thank you for. You get blood work and fix what you can. You view vices with honesty, not shame, reduce the ones that steal tomorrow to fund tonight. You recognize that the body keeps the receipts for everything you do and don't do, then you decide you'd rather pay in discipline up front than in regret later. Financial wealth becomes less stressful when you stop asking it to do moral work. Money cannot repair relationships, grant purpose, or restore health, not reliably, not at sane prices. It can free you from some forms of fear, purchase some forms of time, and offer leverage for generosity. You design for those uses, you automate the boring good moves and rarely touch them. You accept that there will be seasons when you earn less because you chose to be at a hospital bed, on a sideline, or in a class with your name on the attendance sheet. You understand that these are not detours from wealth building, they are the point of it. And because you kept your lifestyle below your means when money was flowing, you can afford to be rich in other ways when money is slower. The framework turns from idea into identity when you begin to narrate your choices through it. Instead of, "I can't, I'm busy," you say, "I'm protecting time wealth." Instead of networking event, I guess, you say, "I'm investing in social wealth with the people I actually want in my future." Instead of grind never stops, you say, "I'm building financial wealth on a schedule that lets me stay married to my health and my people." Instead of hustle until you die, you say, "Sprint, recover, sprint, forever is one in cycles." The vocabulary shifts your posture, and posture becomes practice. None of this is a call to smallness. The portfolio gives you permission to pursue audacious goals without losing the rest of your life along the way. You can build a company, make art that outlives you, run races that scare you, learn languages late, move across continents, raise a family you're proud of. The difference is that you treat these not as trophies to show, but as expressions of your values. You do big things in ways that keep the rest of your wealth intact. You reject the false trade that asks you to cash out health and relationships to buy money you won't have time to spend. When you look back after a few years of living this way, the scoreboard reads differently. Weeknights include dinners that would have been postponed. Your body feels more like an ally than a liability. Your mind is less volatile, more steady. Your accounts are boring in the most beautiful way. Your friendships have roots. You still have ambition. Ambition just sits inside the larger aim of a well-lived life. You still have seasons of imbalance. Imbalance just happens by design and in service of something you chose. There will be pressure to drift back to the old scoreboard. Markets will boom and ask you to chase. Social feeds will glow and ask you to perform. Work cultures will celebrate martyrdom and ask you to prove you belong. When that happens, you return to first principles. Measure what matters, design your days, rebalance your portfolio, and keep your promises to the future self who will live with the consequences. Wealth, pluralized, becomes not a finish line but a craft. It is practiced in plain hours. It is defended by small rules. It is shared because the best way to get richer in every form worth having is to help the people around you build the same 5 accounts. You fix the scoreboard once, and then you fix it again every time the world tries to swap it out while you aren't looking. You remember that a life can look rich and feel poor, and a life can look ordinary and feel like abundance. You choose the latter on purpose. You build your portfolio like you intend to keep it. You let the 5 types of wealth work on each other in a virtuous circle, time-enabling relationships, relationships steadying the mind, a steady mind caring for the body, a healthy body powering work, and money buying back time so the cycle can repeat at higher levels. And when someone asks you how you got so lucky, you smile and say that luck arrived when you started measuring the right things.